This video is for people who are feeling out of place in corporate and they haven't realized that it is not a personal flaw. It is simply a mismatch. And so, what it looks like when you feel out of place in corporate is that you don't want to go to happy hour. You don't want to hang out with your coworkers after work. You just feel a little uninspired when it comes to your job, right? You're there, you're showing up, you're completing tasks, you're getting things done, but you are just not feeling it. You're not feeling your coworkers, you're not feeling the work. It's just this huge point of boring contentment, right? You don't want to complain too much because in the grand scheme of things, you're probably a high earner when it comes to the national averages of what people are making right now. And you have a good job and no one's bothering you. But there's just this feeling that you cannot explain. This feeling of like, there has to be something else. And I have just been speaking to so many people who they just can't put their finger on it, but they know that they are trying to get out of corporate by any means. And I've been there before, right? I had a goal to leave corporate back when I was doing my fashion blogging and fashion designing. And I was like, oh, if I can save like $25,000, I'm just going to leave corporate. And a lot of my older mentors were like, that's not a lot of money. You don't understand how difficult it is to make money on your own either. So you need to stick with corporate until you can figure it out. And luckily I did, but I still didn't quite understand what was going on. Like, what is this feeling? I was just speaking to a family friend. She's a young girl and she's just like, I'm getting out of corporate this year. I'm just not feeling it. And I was kind of trying to probe her for like, what is it? Like, what is this feeling that you have that you just can't put your finger on? And I think through the conversation with her, I realized just how hard it is to put a name to it, to that feeling that you have. And when I think back to, I think for a lot of us, we end up taking it, personally, and we start to think that something's wrong with us and that I'm just not built for corporate. Or, you hear some people say that I'm just not made to work for other people. I think what that really is, and I just don't think that could be further from the truth. I think what's really going on is that, especially African Americans, I think we are creatives at heart. We are creatives. We want to be doing something with our hands, moving our bodies, creating beautiful art, creating something. And I think when you are in corporate, it takes that creativity away from you. It pretty much stifles you down to a widget mover. You're taking somebody else's process that you have no ability to alter, to be creative with, to change. And then I think what makes it even worse is that you're not tied to the outcome either. And that's something that you get when you are being a creative, is that you come up with an idea, you have all the endorphins that come along with bringing something to life. And, you get to work really hard. You get all the credit for all of the hard work that it took to pull this off. And then at the end of the day, when there is success, you get to feel the benefits of that, whether it's money, whether experience, whether, something that you can look at tangibly and say, I did that. And for some reason, it just seems as if that is not a possibility in corporate. And I honestly think that is at the root of it. That it's not that we don't belong in those spaces. It's not that we can't fit in. But it's that we were literally built to do something different. And it's the everyday monotony that kind of it has people wanting to quit without a backup plan. And I mean, I could go down that path too, because I know a lot of people who they're so sick of it, they just quit. And I don't recommend that either, because it's like the job market is difficult right now. You don't know when your next paycheck is going to come. And if your current job isn't hurting, harming, detrimental to you, you got to kind of stick it out until you figure out something else. I'm a big proponent of you need to be building something on the side, but let's keep it real. You don't need to quit with no backup plan to do so. And then it's almost like when you quit simply because you felt uncomfortable or that you didn't fit in or whatever, you really are letting them win. They won because now you're the one at home trying to figure out how to pay your bills. And they have moved on. I know you've seen that meme where it's like, if you die today, like the company is going to keep it pushing. Don't think for a second that they are going to be phased by you quitting your job. They're not. They're going to keep it pushing. They're going to find a way to get your work done. And now you're the one dealing with the life change because of a decision based on a feeling. And I just think it's so ironic that if there's a group of 10 Black people in a room, 9 of them don't like their job. And so it's like, are other cultures dealing with this? I don't know. But I think that's a very interesting thing to explore. If you're of another culture and you're watching this, drop me a comment below because I don't know. But I know amongst my friends that are African Americans, associates, just random people on the street, I can guarantee you I could walk up to any African American and ask them how things are going with their job. And they're either going to say they don't like it or they're going to say, it's okay. And I've had managers where, you know, it kind of felt like they were making it their mission to get me more engaged with the whole thing. And that leads me to believe that even though we think we're faking it and that we're just getting through, that other people feel it too. I'm not sure if other people feel it or not, but I think people in corporate spaces want to see us more excited to be there when we are treating it like, you know, just a means of income. And I think that's totally fine to do. Everybody has the right to, you know, I'm here to work a job. As long as I'm doing the job, that should be enough. But when my manager kept trying to get me engaged, I just couldn't do more. You know, I'm like, I have so many things outside of this job that are really important to me. You know, that's where I get my creative energy, where I give my, you know, my extra, my going the extra mile, my this, my that. My very first manager in corporate told me, he was African American, and he's like, you got to fake it until you make it. And I don't know if I really knew what he meant by that. But now I'm interpreting that different. And it's more so, you might have to fake that energy to get through it until you have a better opportunity, until you can create the time and space and energy to have the luxury to focus on your creative outlet. And I think, you know, it's we like to make it an either or conversation. And I don't know if it's either or. I think you can work in corporate, make the good, dependable money, work on your creative outlet behind the scenes, and find fulfillment that way. I mean, the worst thing you can do is be feeling unfulfilled in corporate and feeling like you're not fitting in and not do anything in terms of a creative outlet to kind of level out and balance those feelings. So I think you got to have something going on. So for me, what that looked like, instead of quitting my job, I picked up the blogging, picked up the fashion blogging, picked up sewing. It's like whatever it is that you are interested in, kick it up a notch. Kick it up a notch to the point where it feels like a job. And then once it feels like a job, you have more of a clear reference point of, do I want to quit my job to do this? Is that the best idea? Like, am I really going to quit my job based on a feeling or, you know, something like that? And I also want to touch on the fact that I don't know why people think that when they don't feel like they fit in at work, first thing they have to do is quit. I guess that's the point of this whole video. Don't quit. because the feeling doesn't change. You go to the next employer, the feeling returns and it returns and it returns and it returns. And I think the solution is to have your creative outlet until you can afford to focus on that creative outlet. I think what's most important is that before things get out of control, before it's blatantly obvious to your team and your manager and the company that you're working for that you don't want to be there, you have to shake it up. You cannot sit in that misalignment and that boredom and that feeling like you don't fit in. You can't sit there. So if I was filling out a place in corporate right now, there are a couple things I would do. First, I would find my creative outlet and I would work it until it felt like a job. B, I would create some sort of habit or some sort of accountability system to stay engaged with work because it's not going to be natural. I hope you feel seen by this video in knowing that it is not a personal issue of why you feel like you don't fit in. So I said, find something to do, figure out how to fake it, stack your money. The best method of attaining freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want, is money. So you really got to work on all three of those things at the same time. And I would say, stay physical. Get you a workout regimen. Take on some sort of challenge. It is serving as a distraction, but you need to distract yourself from those feelings before you do something and make a move prematurely or do something detrimental, a move that you would regret later. And so if I could leave you with just one thing from this video, is that you are not alone. A lot of people feel this way. And I think the key is us figuring out how to maneuver around it and stay sane. I think our ancestors, the generations before us, they were so happy to have jobs that they couldn't even afford to have these feelings. And now we're at a different level where we're having all sorts of feelings about, earning money that people never could have imagined. And at the end of the day, you just got to keep it moving. You have to keep it moving. Quitting without a plan is not a plan. That is stalling. That is being stagnant. And we know that action leads to confidence, and confidence is what leads to the cash. If you enjoy reading as much as you like watching, you can find me on Substack at Confidence is Cash. And you can find all of my AI experiments and conversations over at the Prompt Life Podcast here on YouTube. That's all I got, guys.